Could a silent gaze carry a message too dangerous to be spoken aloud? Or has it become the most honest clue hidden behind the smiles of the world's biggest idols? That question is now haunting fans after what seemed like a simple moment turned into an emotional puzzle impossible to ignore, when Jungkook was seen casting a calm yet suspicious look in an unexpected direction, right at the moment Taehyung was in the same room. It all began with a gathering that initially seemed completely ordinary. All 7 members of BTS came together in a closed, private location, a special place reportedly used for an important internal activity. There were no grand stage lights, no roaring crowd of fans, just them, the members who have walked a long journey filled with pressure, success, and secrets not always meant for the public eye. And yet, within that simplicity, something felt off. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Laughter echoed, conversations flowed lightly, and the occasional camera capture showed what looked like the warmth of a friendship built over years. But then, in a single moment that has now gone viral across platforms, public attention suddenly locked onto something no one expected: Jungkook's silent gaze. It wasn't empty. It wasn't just exhaustion. There was something deeper, heavier. Something that felt like it carried an unfinished message. Why did Jungkook choose silence while the others were actively talking? Why didn't his eyes follow the conversation, but instead fixated on a point that was hard to explain? And the most unsettling question of all, was that gaze connected to Taehyung? Observant fans began slowing down the footage, zooming into every frame, trying to read body language that is often more honest than words. In the clip, it became clear that whenever Taehyung moved or spoke, Jungkook didn't respond the way he usually would. There was no signature smile, no spontaneous interaction that had long defined their bond. There was only silence and that gaze. A gaze that lasted too long to be called coincidence. Some K-pop cultural analysts have even linked this phenomenon to the concept of nonverbal communication in social psychology, where eye expressions often reveal emotions left unspoken. In this context, Jungkook's gaze is being interpreted as a hard code, a signal that might only be understood by a specific person, or perhaps only by himself. If it truly was a code, then who was it meant for? Was it directed at Taehyung? Or someone unseen by the camera? Or more shockingly, was it a reflection of an internal conflict that has never been revealed to the public? Taehyung himself appeared different in that moment. Unlike his usual expressive and energetic self, he seemed calmer, almost distant. He laughed a few times, but there was an unusual pause, as if he were holding something back. And when the camera happened to capture both him and Jungkook in the same frame, there was no eye contact between them. For some, this might seem trivial, but for those who have followed BTS for years, even the smallest change can signal something significant, especially when it involves 2 members known for their strong emotional connection. Then came the more daring question: was something being deliberately hidden? Various theories began to surface. Some believed it was nothing more than fatigue, the result of an intense schedule and relentless industry pressure. Others, however, suspected something more serious: a tension unresolved, perhaps even a conflict never openly addressed. Interestingly, in other moments from that same gathering, members like Jimin and RM seemed to be trying harder to maintain a warm atmosphere. They laughed louder, spoke more actively, almost as if attempting to cover something that wasn't meant to be seen. Was it coincidence? Or a subtle effort to redirect attention? The deeper the footage was analyzed, the more small details started to feel significant. Changes in seating positions, pauses in conversation, even the way Jungkook avoided direct interaction. All of it formed a pattern that was difficult to dismiss. And then one moment that truly changed everything. In a shorter clip, Taehyung was seen briefly turning toward Jungkook. Just 1 second, but enough to capture an unusual expression. Not anger, not sadness, but hesitation. As if he wanted to say something but chose not to. No reaction. No shift in expression. Just a gaze that drifted away again, as if avoiding something too difficult to face. This is where public opinion began to divide. Some dismissed it as overanalysis, the product of fans reading too deeply into nothing. But others saw it as undeniable evidence that something within their dynamic had changed. And perhaps the truth lies somewhere in between. Because in a world filled with cameras and constant attention, the most important moments often happen in silence. In unnoticed glances. In fleeting seconds that were never meant to be captured. Jungkook's gaze may have never been intended for millions to interpret, but now it has become the center of attention, a symbol of something still unspoken. Is this the beginning of a bigger story, or just a small fragment of a complex and deeply human relationship? One thing is certain, this moment has reignited conversations about the unseen side of idol life, the part that doesn't always shine on stage, but feels the most real behind the scenes. And as the clip continued to circulate, something even more unsettling began to emerge, not from what was shown, but from what felt deliberately left out. The room, once filled with light laughter and effortless chemistry, suddenly seemed to carry an invisible weight, as if there were conversations that had already happened before the cameras turned on, or perhaps words that would only be spoken after everything was over. The silence surrounding Jungkook no longer felt passive, it felt intentional. There were moments where his posture shifted ever so slightly, subtle enough to escape casual viewers, yet strikingly obvious to those who chose to look closer. His shoulders, once relaxed, seemed more rigid. His breathing, barely noticeable, appeared measured, controlled, like someone trying to maintain composure in a situation that demanded restraint. And then there were his hands, resting still, almost too still, as if any movement might reveal something he was trying hard to keep hidden. Meanwhile, Taehyung continued to exist within the same space, but almost on a different emotional frequency. He interacted, he responded, he smiled, but none of it quite reached his eyes in the way it used to. There was a disconnect, subtle yet persistent, like two parallel lines that once intersected effortlessly, but now moved forward without touching. Was this distance new, or had it always been there, simply unnoticed until now? Some fans began revisiting older footage, comparing past interactions with this current moment, searching for patterns that might explain the shift. In earlier videos, their dynamic had always carried a sense of ease, unspoken understanding, spontaneous reactions, a rhythm that didn't need effort. But here, in this particular gathering, that rhythm felt disrupted. And disruption, in a group known for its synchronicity, is never easily ignored. There were also whispers about the nature of the special activity that brought them together that day. While no official details were released, speculation ranged from internal discussions about future projects to more personal conversations that required privacy. If it was indeed something significant, then the emotional undertones captured in that brief footage might not have been accidental at all. What if the cameras had only captured the aftermath? What if Jungkook's silence wasn't about the present moment, but about something that had already been said, or perhaps something that hadn't been said when it should have been? That possibility added another layer to the mystery, one that made the situation feel less like coincidence and more like a fragment of a larger, unseen narrative. And then came the reactions from those closest to the group. Though no direct statements were made, subtle changes in tone during subsequent appearances did not go unnoticed. There was a carefulness in the way certain topics were approached, a slight hesitation before answering questions that would normally be handled with ease. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't obvious, but it was there. Enough to raise eyebrows, enough to keep the questions alive. Some observers pointed out that moments like these are inevitable in long-standing relationships, especially under the intense scrutiny that comes with global fame. The pressure, the expectations, the constant need to maintain a certain image, it all adds up. And sometimes the cracks don't appear in loud arguments or visible conflicts, but in quiet shifts, in things left unsaid. Yet, despite all the analysis, all the speculation, one undeniable truth remains. No one outside that room truly knows what happened. The footage, no matter how many times it is replayed, is still just a fragment. A moment frozen in time, stripped of context, open to interpretation. And while it invites questions, it does not guarantee answers. Still, the human instinct to search for meaning persists. Because when people have invested years into following a story, into understanding the dynamics between individuals, even the smallest deviation can feel significant. It becomes more than just observation. It becomes a need to understand, to connect the dots, to uncover what might be hidden beneath the surface. And perhaps that is why Jungkook's gaze continues to resonate. Not because it clearly reveals something, but because it doesn't. Because it leaves space for doubt, for curiosity, for emotion. It challenges the idea that everything can be seen, that everything can be known. And in doing so, it turns a simple moment into something far more powerful. Something that lingers. Even now, long after the clip first appeared, discussions continue. New interpretations emerge, old ones are revisited, and the question at the center of it all refuses to fade. Or perhaps, in a world where so much is carefully curated and controlled, it was a rare glimpse of something real. Something unfiltered, unplanned, and undeniably human. And yet, the deeper this moment was examined, the more it began to feel less like an isolated incident and more like a ripple from something much larger, something that had been quietly building beneath the surface long before anyone noticed. Because in a group whose strength has always been rooted in connection, trust, and almost instinctive understanding, even the slightest fracture, no matter how invisible, carries weight. The atmosphere in that room, though only partially visible through fragmented clips, seemed to hold layers of tension that could not be fully explained by fatigue alone. There was a stillness that didn't belong to rest, but to restraint. A quiet that didn't signal peace but hesitation. Jungkook, who had often been described as expressive through both action and reaction, appeared unusually contained. It wasn't just that he wasn't speaking, it was how deliberately he wasn't speaking. His silence had structure, almost as if it was chosen rather than natural. And that choice, whether conscious or not, is what unsettled so many who watched. At the same time, Taehyung's presence in the room continued to add complexity to the situation. There were brief flashes of familiarity, moments where his expression softened, where his laughter almost felt genuine, but they passed too quickly, replaced by something more guarded. It was as if he, too, was aware of an unspoken line that neither of them was willing to cross in that moment. What kind of line exists between two people who have shared years of trust, countless stages, and an unbreakable bond in the eyes of the world? And more importantly, what could cause that line to appear? Speculation continued to evolve, growing more layered as time passed. Some began to consider the possibility that what was seen wasn't conflict, but distance born from change. Growth, after all, doesn't always move in the same direction for everyone. People evolve, perspectives shift, priorities transform, and even the strongest connections must adapt or risk becoming strained under the weight of those changes. The gathering didn't happen in a vacuum. It took place during a period where expectations around the group's future, individual paths, and long-term direction were already under intense discussion among fans and observers alike. Every gesture, every expression, every pause suddenly carried amplified meaning because of that context. And within that heightened awareness, Jungkook's gaze didn't just stand out, it echoed. There was also an emotional layer that went beyond analysis, beyond theories and interpretations. For many, watching that moment didn't just spark curiosity, it sparked concern. Because what they saw wasn't just two global icons in a quiet room. They saw two individuals whose connection had once felt effortless, now navigating something that seemed heavier. And perhaps that is what made the moment resonate so deeply, not because it confirmed anything, but because it felt real in a way that perfection never does. Perfection is easy to accept but difficult to believe. Imperfection, however, small cracks, fleeting hesitations, unspoken words, those are the things that remind people that behind the image, behind the performances, there are human beings experiencing emotions that cannot always be controlled or concealed. Still, the absence of clear answers leaves space for endless interpretation. Some choose to believe that nothing is wrong, that the bond remains unchanged, simply expressed differently in that moment. Others feel that what was seen is only the surface of something that may eventually come to light in ways no one expects. And then there are those who remain in between, acknowledging the ambiguity, accepting the uncertainty, and recognizing that not every question is meant to be answered immediately. Because sometimes understanding comes not from what is revealed, but from what is withheld. A moment suspended between what is known and what is merely felt. As time moves forward, new content will emerge, new interactions will be seen, and perhaps new clarity will follow. Or perhaps not. Perhaps this moment will remain exactly what it is now. A fragment, a pause, a question mark in a story that continues to evolve. But even if clarity never comes, the impact of that single silent gaze has already left its mark. It has reminded millions that even in the most visible lives, there are invisible layers. That even in the loudest careers, there are quiet moments that carry the most meaning. And that sometimes the most powerful stories are not told through words, actions, or headlines, but through a single look that lingers just long enough to make the world stop and wonder what really happened in that room. And as days turned into weeks, the moment refused to fade the way most fleeting clips do. Instead, it settled into something more persistent, like an unanswered question that quietly follows you, resurfacing when you least expect it. New footage came, new appearances unfolded, yet that single silent gaze continued to anchor the conversation, as if it had captured something that couldn't be undone. What made it even more unsettling was not just what was seen, but what seemed to follow afterward. In subsequent interactions, there were glimpses, small, almost imperceptible, where Jungkook and Taehyung shared the same space again. Nothing dramatic happened. No confrontation, no visible tension that could be clearly defined. And yet, for those who had watched closely before, something still felt different. The ease that once defined their presence together now appeared more measured, more aware, as if both were navigating an invisible boundary that hadn't existed before. Was it intentional, or simply the weight of being watched? Because once a moment like that is noticed, it changes everything. Not just for the audience, but potentially for those being observed. Every movement becomes more conscious, every glance more controlled, every interaction more deliberate. And in that heightened awareness, authenticity becomes harder to recognize. But then again, what if what people were seeing now was the result of that exact awareness? What if the silence in that original moment had never been meant to be interpreted, never meant to be dissected frame by frame, and yet now, because it had been, it created a new layer of pressure, one that neither Jungkook nor Taehyung